All right, guys, so I just dropped off my Gladiator to have the oil leak fixed. Been waiting for 5 weeks, and I finally got an appointment over here to get my Jeep fixed. And thankfully this time they put me in a loaner, and not just any loaner. It's a JL Unlimited, actually. I don't know what model year this is. I think it might be a 21, not 100% sure. But anyway, this will be my first time driving the little 4-cylinder turbo engine in the JL. So I'm going to take this opportunity to do some testing with it. Now, this is a completely stock JL, no lift, obviously, no tires, no wheels. It's completely stock, obviously, because it's a dealership loaner vehicle. And it's got 26,000 miles on it, as you can see. So I'm going to, in the time that I have this, I'm going to do some fuel economy testing and just tell you what I think about the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine in these Jeeps. Because like I said, this is my first opportunity actually driving one. So I know this engine's been out for a little while, but it should be really cool to compare this to the Pentastar and also to the EcoDiesel. So in the coming days, and hopefully not, but maybe weeks, depending on how long they end up having my truck, I'll tell you what I think about this thing. So right now I'm going to go put a little gasoline in it, reset the trip meter, and we'll see how it does. All right, so this Jeep has a soft top and it's pretty loud in here. Hopefully you can hear me okay, but initial thoughts on this 2-liter turbo engine. Holy cow. This thing is strong. I'm going to tell you something. I have always felt like the Pentastar is the way to go if you're not going to get the diesel engine. But now that I've driven this thing, just in terms of power, okay, we're not going to get into longevity, dependability. Will you be able to get a lot of miles out of this fancy, sophisticated engine? We're not even going to get into that stuff. Just talking about drivability and power, this thing is surprisingly strong. I mean, the low-end torque really feels like my diesel. I mean, I just barely dip into the pedal when the light turns green, and this thing goes. I just merged onto the interstate a minute ago, and the next thing I know, I'm running 85 miles an hour. I mean, this thing has a ton of power. Crazy how strong this thing is for a 2-liter turbo. Now, granted, this is a Wrangler, so it's a lot more lightweight than my Gladiator. So, that kind of plays into it too. But I did have a JL with a Pentastar engine in it, so I remember what it was like. And I'm telling you, the torque and the power on this little motor is awesome. Very surprising. So I reset the MPG display. It's showing 17.8. And like I said, I'll drive it this week and we'll see where the fuel economy is on this compared to the Pentastar V6 and the diesel engine. That'll be very interesting. But yeah, initial thoughts, no problem as far as power goes. This thing is awesome. So let's pop the lid here and see what we've got. Okay. So this is the 2-liter turbo engine with e-torque. This is actually a 2019 model. I looked at the door jam sticker. It's actually a 2019 model. Like I said, 26,000 miles. You can see it's pretty well used already because it's pretty dirty under here. But it is a 2-liter turbo, got the e-torque system. So that explains why it feels so torquey down low, because of that e-torque system. That's exactly the claim to fame for the e-torque system, is that it gets you off the line smoother and a little stronger, and it can assist in certain situations. It can assist the engine with additional power. So that makes sense. That's why this thing feels so strong down low, and that is why it feels so strong up in the highway speeds. Is that Honeywell turbo that's hiding down in there. So yeah, like I said, this powertrain is super strong, feels really good at any speed. With the turbo, you've got the power when you're on the highway. With the e-torque system, I guess, you've got the power down low too. So yeah, in terms of drivability, power and all that, this thing is awesome. Very, very good option. If you're somebody who wants a Jeep that drives really sporty and nimble and feels athletic, I've been really enjoying this. So it's about a 35-minute drive from the dealership to my house. And then from my house to work is a 35-minute drive, 3 different cities, by the way. And then I drove it back home another 35 minutes today. And so far, the dash display is showing me 26 miles per gallon. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. I gotta wait, until I get about, I don't know, I'd say at least another 50 miles or so, it'll be ready to fill up, and then I can do some hand calculations. But so far, just based on the dash display, it is knocking down some phenomenal MPG numbers. Now, granted, it's a dealership loaner vehicle, so it's completely stock. It's a soft top, no lift, no tires, no winch, none of that stuff that most Jeeps that you see have on them. Okay, so it's a very lightweight package. I'd say this particular Jeep in this configuration as it sits right here, maybe just a little over 4,000 pounds. So very lightweight, that contributes heavily to the fuel economy. But even so, if it really is getting 26 miles per gallon at the end of my weekly commute, that will be better than my diesel and a lot better than the Pentastar gas engine. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that and see how this thing shakes out. Right now, as far as power and fuel economy, I'm extremely impressed with it. Having said that, the reason that I've always dogged on these little turbo motors is because they usually are garbage. Now, I haven't had any experience with this particular one until now, and I'm not going to have any experience with it in terms of long-term, but all of the other small turbo engines that we've had in my family have been garbage. They coke up the valves and the internals because of the direct injection. You've got the turbo to worry about long-term. This particular Jeep with the e-torque system has 2 different cooling systems, one of which has coolant lines that actually run under the Jeep. I guess it's to keep the 48-volt battery pack and wiring cool. I don't know for sure, but anyway, you've got 2 cooling systems to maintain. Eventually that's gonna leak. Eventually it's gonna be a problem. You're gonna have to do some repair on that. It's got the e-torque system, which has an MGU, a motor generator unit, instead of an alternator. So the last I checked, that unit down in there is about a $1,400 or $1,500 item, compared to what, about 200 bucks for an alternator. So that's gonna be expensive one day. Then you've got the 48-volt battery pack and all the associated wiring that goes with that. So the bottom line is, if you're gonna keep a Jeep for 150, 200, 250,000 miles, is something like this what you really want? I don't know. I mean, I don't think these have been on the road long enough for us to know for sure, but just, common sense would tell you that if you have all of this fancy, sophisticated stuff on your Jeep, the odds of having a problem with it are greater. I mean, the odds of having to, shell out a bunch of money beyond warranty to repair some of this stuff are just naturally going to be greater. It's not as simple of a design as the Pentastar V6. So, time will tell. The jury's out on that. But yeah, as far as longevity goes, I don't know. As far as power and fuel economy, yes, this thing is sweet. Now, I will briefly discuss something else that I've noticed, which is really weird. So this is a 2019 model JLU, right? I had a 2018 JLU Sport, which is basically the same thing with a different engine in it. I also had the 2020 JT and now the 2021 JT. So I'm no stranger to these new Jeeps. This one, for some reason, is just, I can't even really begin to describe it. The interior is just junk in it. Today, one of the sun visors literally fell off. Going down my gravel lane out here, there's all kinds of squeaks and rattles and plasticky sounds going on inside of it. I mean, it just sounds and feels like an extremely cheap vehicle inside. And the reason that's so weird is because in all of the Jeeps that I've had, and I've got one right now, I haven't noticed that in any of my personal ones. I've never had rattles like that and just the feeling of cheapness on the inside. That's never been anything that I've noticed. So I don't know what the deal is with this one. For 2019, did they cheapen up the interior specifically on the Wrangler? I don't know. but it's just really weird. I mean, I don't know how to explain that. So that's one thing that I noticed right off the bat, is how cheap it feels inside. The steering on this one is super sharp. I don't know, I can't vouch for it. I don't know if they've done some service on it. You know, I know there was one or more technical service bulletins floating around out there regarding the wandering and the steering on these JLs. Maybe the dealership proactively went ahead and worked on this one. I don't know, I can't say. Maybe it's completely stock, like it came off the assembly line, I don't know. But it drives really good. I mean, the steering wheel is really tight. There's no wandering in it at all. It feels really good out on the road. The suspension, you know, I had a Wrangler, then I had the Gladiator, and now another Gladiator. So now I'm driving a Wrangler again. It's been a little while since I had a Wrangler myself, but the suspension on these Wranglers is way stiffer. I mean, this thing will jar your teeth out. It's really surprising how much more firm and stiff and rough the Wrangler rides compared to the Gladiator. And when you really notice it is, again, like on a gravel lane, going down a gravel road like this, or a rough section of highway, for example. That's where you really start to notice it. But yeah, the suspension is really firm, really stiff. It'll jar you to death. I don't really feel that in the Gladiator nearly as much. So there's some pretty big differences here between the Wrangler and the Gladiator in terms of interior, which is odd, in terms of ride quality, you know, so there's some pretty big differences. But I can also tell that this vehicle is a lot more lightweight. You can feel the lightness of it in the steering and the handling. I think this particular JL is probably 600 or 700 pounds lighter than a comparable Gladiator. So, you know, when you drive one of these out on the road, you can definitely feel that, and you can tell that it's a much lighter vehicle. And that contributes to fuel economy as well. But anyway, just some thoughts on the Wrangler, since I have an opportunity here to drive one with the 2-liter turbo engine. You know, those are kind of my thoughts on it. Now, would I drive one of these? Like, would I buy one of these to have long term? Probably not. Because again, I think the jury is still out on whether or not this engine, especially with the e-torque system, whether or not it's going to be reliable, dependable long term. So I probably wouldn't buy one for a personal vehicle. But if you were just going to lease one for a couple of years or something, you just wanted something fun and sporty, I would definitely give this 2-liter powertrain a hard look, because it's definitely got the power and the gas mileage, so it's got a lot going for it. Like I said, I've been driving it for a couple of days now, and there's where the fuel economy is sitting right now. It says I've got 95 miles to go actually before I have to fill it back up again, but I'm gonna do some hand calculations on it, fill her up, and then try it again and see where this thing ends up settling in at. But that is super impressive though. I mean, the leather on the leather wrapped steering wheel seems to be holding up okay. You can see how the console armrest is getting shinier from having elbows on it all the time. So that stuff's all right. I mean, the seats, you know, they're wrinkled up a little, but they're holding up okay. But mainly it's just like the plastics. I mean, this one has the lower end Uconnect radio in it, but like, I mean, the plastics up here, you know, the plastics up on the visors, there's a lot of rattling going on from up in here. Not really sure what that is. The soft top hardware seems to rattle around a whole lot. This one is quite a bit noisier, as you would expect. It's quite a bit noisier out on the road than my hardtop Jeeps have been. But the way that it works is kind of cool, you know, because you can just flip that back, or you can obviously take the entire soft top down. But yeah, I mean, my main complaint in here, other than the complete lack of leg room and storage space, is just how cheap it is. I mean, look at this. It's just, I don't know. It's just so weird that I've never noticed that. And I've had 3 of these things. I had JKs before this, and now 3 of these new JLJT platform Jeeps. And I've never noticed that myself. I don't know. It's so strange to me. But anyway, I'm gonna let it go at that. So I'm gonna put the hood back down, and puppies are ready to go play Frisbee. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.